we dialed in? Are we dialed in? Great. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Tony Nicknajad. I'm representative of the governor's office, and welcome to the winter meeting of the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation. We will do a roll call. Laura Kay, if you would mind taking the roll.
Chairman Nicknajad.
Present.
Treasurer Lillard.
Here.
Christina Podesta.
Here.
Greg Turner.
Here.
Claude Presnell.
Present.
Commissioner Schwinn. Dr. Heidi Lemming.
Present.
Dr. Linda Martin.
Present.
Cyrus Vandenduist.
Present.
John Smorelli.
Here by phone.
Joe Myers. Sharon Hayes.
Here.
Sabrina Washington.
All right, we have a quorum. Next item of business, we will move to adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved, Linda Martin.
Do we take the ayes and nays of that?
Since they're on the phone, we do have to take a roll call vote.
Yeah. We'll take a roll call on the motion to adopt the agenda. Laura Kay?
Chairman Nicknajad.
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Christina Podesta.
Aye.
Claude Presnell.
Aye.
Greg Turner.
Aye.
Commissioner Schwinn. Dr. Heidi Lemming.
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin.
Aye.
Cyrus Vandenduist.
Aye.
John Smorelli.
Aye.
Joe Myers. Sharon Hayes.
Aye.
Sabrina Washington.
The ayes have it. The agenda is adopted. Next item of business, we will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the June 5th, 2019 board meeting. That minutes should be in everyone's packet. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. This is Sharon.
We'll take the roll again.
Chairman Nicknajad.
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Christina Podesta.
Aye.
Claude Presnell.
Aye.
Greg Turner.
Aye.
Dr. Heidi Lemming.
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin.
Aye.
Cyrus Vandenduist.
Aye.
John Smorelli.
Aye.
Joe Myers. Sharon Hayes.
Aye.
Sabrina Washington.
Unanimous. Next item of business, the chairman's report. I have nothing to report other than we do have a new member present, I think by phone, Mr. Joe Myers from Motlow State Community College, representing TASFAA. Joe, would you like to say a few words and introduce yourself?
He's not on.
Oh, okay.
One way to do your first meeting.
All right. Yeah. Well, we look forward to working with Joe, and we understand. I think he actually has a conflict with the association. Maybe I think they have an event going on this time, so we'll give him a pass. Joe replaces Tiffany, who we wish well. Moving on, we have a report from the executive director. So, Mike, I will turn it over to you.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few administrative notes, and then, as always, when we have this group assembled, both on phone and in person, we want to give an update on what have been probably our two most dynamic programs, dynamic in terms of both their reach and their fiscal output, Tennessee Promise and Tennessee Reconnect. So in a moment, I will call on James Snyder to give us an update on that. In the meantime, just two administrative notes. One, this is very likely our last TSAC board meeting in this space. I know everyone is going to miss their opportunity to come to Parkway Towers. We will be moving likely in April to the Tennessee Tower, and so please just look forward. Our next meeting, the logistical notes will be quite different. and we'll be looking for meeting venue space that will accommodate us. You'll notice today's agenda is very brief, but it's also very important. I would say alongside Promise and Reconnect is the GIVE Act that was passed last year in terms of really moving our state forward and executing the governor's vision for technical education. And today, what is before the board is an opportunity to adopt the administrative rules under which we will operate the GIVE Act grants. And so it's a tremendously important meeting, and I do appreciate everybody's attendance either on the phone or in person. I would say to the board, we want to work on making sure, there's no doubt, and Dr. Presnell can vouch for this along with Pete, TSAC board meetings have changed because about 5 years ago, TSAC was running a $4 billion bank out of here. And now that we are not in the lending business, there is no doubt this is a very functional role. So we want to be respectful of your time. We want to make sure that our agendas cover exactly what we need to cover and occupy a minimal amount of your time. At the same time, we want to be respectful of the very appropriate role that the board plays in the operations of financial aid. So we will, I can tell you now, we will need to meet in the spring because we will need to adopt the high need fields that Pete will talk about in a moment when we talk about the rules. And otherwise, we'll just be working with each of you to figure out what the right meeting rhythm is. But be assured, we are not tied to quarterly meetings. TSAC is not required to meet quarterly, Pete. It's required to meet when action is taken. And that's when the only time we will call upon you. My last thing, and then I'll call on James. We do have a piece of legislation that will be moving this session that we will send a summary to each of you at the end of the month once it is filed. Dr. Presnell has actually already helped us review it. This piece of legislation will be known as the FAST Act, Financial Aid Simplification for Tennessee, and Tony and the governor's office have also been part of that review process. The legislative structure of the current section that begins with Hope Lottery Scholarship was constructed in 2004, and ever since then, every legislative session, we've layered on more and more programs. One, we need to simplify the language. It's become a bit of a Frankenstein monster. Two, we have loan scholarship programs that are not being utilized by Tennesseans. We're talking loan scholarship programs. One scholarship program has had no participants in 20 years. Other loan programs that are dwindling down into the 20s. We are going to propose and work with the General Assembly to grandfather out those programs. So to be clear, no one will be losing any benefit they currently possess, but we would propose to stop accepting new applications for several of the loan programs that have been in operation. We also want to make sure that we're continuing to be equitable to our homeschool population in Tennessee, and homeschoolers face many challenges in trying to make sure they're appropriately connected with financial aid. We're going to simplify some of those processes. We're also going to try to make sure that our foster child program is in alignment with all of the federal definitions. And then finally, we want to try to make sure that as much authority as we can on day-to-day operations for some scholarships are delegated to this board so that we don't have to go back to the General Assembly to handle operational matters. The best example of this is the Helping Heroes Scholarship, which we currently have for veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. As you would note, our theaters of operation are far beyond Iraq now, and we don't want to tell the guy that was part of the raid in Syria a few months ago, well, you can't get Helping Heroes because you weren't in Iraq or Afghanistan. We'll be seeking from the General Assembly the authority that this board be able to determine what the qualifying events are for that scholarship program. Pete, does that generally cover the contours? A lot of cleanup.
Yeah, a lot of cleanup, a lot of technical language. Program of study is probably the other.
Thank you, and forgive me. So this is substantial and we think important. As you all know, right now, technically most of our financial aid programs would pay for most anything a student registers for, whether it counts towards their program of study or not. I don't personally believe that's the best use of the state's lottery resources, and maybe more importantly, that is out of line with where we know the federal government is going for federal aid. This will do, so what we will propose in this legislation is that lottery programs and financial aid programs in the state will pay only for those courses that lead to a student progressing through their program of study. So when you hear us talk about this in committee, you'll hear us say program of study. Again, students won't be losing anything here. It'll be helping them accelerate. We won't be paying for the golf class. We will only pay for the classes unless you are majoring in golf course management, which you can do at one of our universities. But unless the class moves you through your program of study, we would propose to the legislature that not be part of the reimbursement. So, and I think that does cover the legislation in totality. We'll seek to move the bill pretty quickly. We have our sponsors designated, and we'll of course keep the board informed. But the first thing we'll do is when we have a final barcoded copy of the bill, Pete will mail that to or email that to all of you so you have it. Any questions on the FAST Act? All right, so with that, James, if you could please take the podium, and we want to update you on Promise and Reconnect, both in terms of how it's reaching our students and then, of course, monitoring the expenditures. Mr. Snyder.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman Newton Jad, Executive Director Kraus, and members of the board. So providing a brief update on Tennessee Promise. As we have done in the past, this is an ever-growing review of the cohorts kind of in totality as we look from applications through to enrollment. So as we can see, the cohorts have grown. I actually did not add cohort 6 on here. We only have the applications. With that cohort, we did see for the first time a slight contraction of applications. We're talking 70 applications. But it is important to note that the senior class, the public school senior class, decreased by roughly 2,000 students from cohort 5 to cohort 6, so that would be some defense in that percentage-wise we actually increased, but raw number-wise there's a slight decrease. I did jokingly with Executive Director Kraus and a colleague of ours, I do take that slightly personally as kind of that bit of competition, but just a bit of note there. So as we see increasing FAFSA completion, the meetings as well, enrollment for fall of 19, we have continued with our initial enrollment class ever increasing from 16,002 in cohort 1 now to 18,565 is our current population for fall enrollees. This continues to grow as the year goes on, but as of Monday, that was our freshman class, or incoming freshman class for fall of 19. So that's a significant accomplishment there. Estimated expenditures still in that roughly $30 million range. Last year we were at 28.8. So I apologize for the asterisks on cohort 4. That is actuals in the 28.8 range. That is not an estimated value. So apologies there.
We get into actuals where?
Cohort 4 is actuals. Cohort 5 is still estimates as to total expenditures, and the average award at 1,060. So we ended at roughly 1,030. Estimating at 1,060 for cohort 5. Okay, and that we'll bring an update at our next board meeting as to I would hope as to actuals, or if that happens prior to the end of the year, it would be another estimate there as well.
Can I ask you a question about
Absolutely.
that one?
Yep.
I'm trying to understand the re-enrolled numbers.
Yeah, so that would be.
Let's say go down cohort 4,
Uh-huh.
and you have enrolled 18.2, re-enrolled 78.
That's fall to fall. And then the
19
1,900 would be third year, like fifth semester enrollees, roughly 1,900,
Okay.
in the range of 1,900 students enrolled in the fifth semester at an eligible institution.
So your 18.2 are the cohort entering as freshmen, sophomores, and then re-enrolled.
Mm-hmm.
The final
Really from cohort 2, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Coming
so
back.
that would be students in their final semester from cohort 2 that are attempting to finish, either complete an associate degree or they are in their fifth semester of eligibility.
So as you go down, the enrollment age generally gets, or enrollment
Yeah, so
time
it would
generally
decrease
gets,
as we continue. So this would just be our total cohort, total population. So if we're looking at it here, this would be incoming freshman class, sophomore
out of
out of cohort 1, the
One.
remainder of cohort 1 that enrolled in the second year, then the remainder of cohort 2 that enrolled in their second year, so on and so forth. And then this would be the remainder of cohort 3, or sorry, apologies, of cohort 3 that enrolled in their fifth semester. So we don't yet have that. This is
see,
an estimate in cohort 5.
yeah. You see how the table's confusing then?
Slightly, as
Yeah.
it grows. So this will contract
Yeah.
itself, and
Because
I
it
did that
might,
here.
for
Go
me,
ahead.
and I do apologize. For me,
You're fine.
if you just show the experience of cohort 1 straight on down,
Okay.
and look at those next semesters instead of trying to, because I heard what Mike said and what you said as well, that you have to understand that the 1550 is actually coming out of cohort 1, I assume, on the re-enrolled under cohort 3.
Yes.
So that's coming really out of cohort 1, right?
Yeah. So in the original,
Those are seniors and
They're
Or, I
the
mean, those
fifth
are
semesters. They're
Fifth
the
semester.
yeah.
these are what would be a
Yeah.
junior,
Okay.
fifth semester student that should be completing an associate degree
Completing
at
an
the end of fall during that year.
It's just that you guys look at this all the time, and so
Sure.
for somebody who doesn't look at it all the time,
Yeah.
I don't think I would have concluded what you're saying. So Okay.
So with this, as we look at this, and I did contract off cohort 1 and cohort 2, this is looking specifically at the incoming freshman class to give comparisons as to that year's. So cohort 3 was 17,842, 16.2 million. As of right now, their next step would be degree completion or transfer. Cohort 4, 18,274. Cohort 5, the currently enrolled class, the estimated cost for that class would be at $18 million. So it is a slight increase over last year's single cohort cost. And then cohort 6, our current applicant class, looking at 64,320. So it's a slight contraction, again, on the applicants from a raw number perspective. And we are in the process of our FAFSA frenzy. That's literally what we're doing right now with students as we quickly approach the February 1st FAFSA deadline.
We are currently 1.5% ahead of where we were with FAFSA this exact same time last year. And as you know, we ended last year over 80%, Dr. House, which placed us as, depending on which table you looked at, either number 1 or number 2 in the nation. So we think we're on track, and in fact, right now we're exceeding it. So that's primarily due to the TSAC outreach staff, none of whom are here because they are all out in schools right now doing nothing but FAFSAs until February 1st.
I will be joining the ranks of the reserves the 27th through the 31st myself to help with FAFSA.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So towards the last 4 or 5 days of FAFSA, we do an all-call for all staff members. THEC, TSAC, doesn't matter if you work in fiscal or you work in financial aid, we all go out to schools and do FAFSAs. You should join us because the FAFSA is an incredibly exciting document.
It is getting shorter, right?
It is getting shorter, 30 questions.
Yes. And so this is a more traditional slide to review a single cohort, as we've seen in the past, our waterfall, starting with application closings. This is the class of 19. So we still reference this as a preliminary result as we're still building the enrollment class. So just this looks at the full pipeline from start to finish. These numbers very closely resemble every year. So we're in the same ballpark each year, with the exception of the fact that the enrollment class continues to increase. Just some general updates. At the last board meeting, I brought a brief update on the college coaching model in that we did receive funding for the coaching model. During the 2018-19 year, we served roughly 2,800 high-risk students. These are the most at-risk students in the population, 0 EFC students, low or less academically prepared students. So the Tennessee Achieves model is assigning a coach to these students, very intensive academic support to help those students be best to be more successful at the universities. And so we're still waiting to see fall to fall retention specifically on that group, but I do know that we served 2,800 and the results were promising. So, and then just a brief mentor recruitment update. We did recruit over 9,000 mentors, which was a new record again to serve and guide our 2020 graduates. So we are very thankful for the residents of the volunteers that have stepped in to recruit or to mentor our students. All right, so from a Tennessee Reconnect perspective, so year one in review, as we closed out the year, at the last board meeting, brought an update. We were in a place of excitement, but also surprise. Obviously, we had a much larger take-up from an applicant perspective as well as an enrollment perspective. So we broke 42,000 applicants. 18,217 is where we finished with the enrollment for the academic year. 95% of those students were at the community colleges. One important factor, and I added this as a last minute kind of add-on, 8,135 of these students were what we would consider reconnectors. So those were students who were not currently enrolled at an institution in fall of 18. So these are students who had taken at least a semester off or were freshly enrolling at an institution. Okay, so that's an important distinction as we look at year two as well, as we begin to review year two. Had a 62% success rate, which is significant in that, and I don't want to misspeak, I believe it was 55% at a community college when you compare success rates of adult learners to Tennessee Reconnect students. So it is significant in that those were credentialed or retained students. We did award 2,153 degrees, which in my opinion, makes everything that we did with this cohort worth it. Okay, the fact that we did spend a significantly larger sum of money than we had originally anticipated, you put that against the 2,153 degrees, and I would defend that every time.
And just to put a fine point on it for the board, so for perspective, These students enrolled, and in 2 semesters, we graduated 2,000 of them. And that's a pretty good day's work in higher education. This large group, just to make a distinction about James's point, of the 18,000, that 8,000 of them were kind of unique. There's no doubt there were 10,000 adults who were already enrolled that we kind of swooped in. I think that was meaningful work because who knows if that adult stays without financial aid appearing in likely their second year. But again, for 2,153 of our reconnectors, they're now college graduates. I don't think we ever would have guessed that the number would have been that high, and to have a 62% success rate, which would be the highest success rate for any Tennessee financial aid program other than GAMS, probably. That's pretty impressive.
We did end the year with a total expenditure of $29.5 million, so it was significantly higher than originally anticipated. We don't have to get into those details. We did have a 33% of the population of enrollees that were a zero award student, meaning that they had sufficient Pell or TSAA or TELS programs that we were not funding that group of students. So in comparison to Promise, we're typically in the 49 to 52% range of zero awards. So that also plays into the expenditure levels as we look at this student compared to a Promise student. And a brief update on year 2, we do have currently 38,000 applications for fall, because we really haven't seen any enrollment data or certification data for the spring. In fall, we did have over 14,000 students enrolled, roughly 7,000, so right at 50% of that fall enrolled class were what we would consider new enrollees, okay, not or reconnectors. Forgive me, I should have used the same terminology there. For fall, we did have a $13.7 million expenditure as of today. So estimating the expenditure in that 30 to 31 million, this is a very early estimate, so please don't hold us to that. We're about 32% zero award in this population as well. So we will keep everyone updated as we move forward as we begin to see spring certifications. We'll know more as to a more accurate estimated expenditure for the academic year. So, and that would conclude my update. Are there questions, discussion, clarifications? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snyder. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of rules for the Education Lottery Scholarship. Mr. Abernathy, if you'd like to take the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, behind tab 1, you'll find the rulemaking hearing rules for the Tennessee Education Lottery Scholarship. And as Director Krause pointed out earlier, this contains as well changes to the dual enrollment award as impacted by the GIVE Act passage last year in the last legislative session. You'll see on the cover page the summary of the changes that we've made. I'll go through not all of those, but at least highlight the more substantive ones. The first of those is on page 3. And let me back up also. You'll note these are rulemaking hearing rules. Most, if not all, of our rules moving forward will be rulemaking hearing rules. We are doing this in response to an increased interest in the legislature to have open meeting or public hearings on rules prior to their adoption by a governing board to give the public opportunity to hear and comment on rules. So these rules are in response to that interest. And it's good policy as well. So the first item you'll see on page 3, and if you have questions on any of these as I go through them, please feel free to ask. We've added a definition for a high-need course or program. This is the first of the rule changes that touch the dual enrollment award for the GIVE Act students. This just simply points out that these are the programs annually selected by the TSAC Board of Directors using criteria in TCA 494930, which are 2 reports that we will utilize, TSAC and THEC staff will utilize in presenting a list of high-need programs for the board's consideration. These are reports that are one is produced by TSAC in concert with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, and the other is the Department of Economic and Community Development. Dr. Emily House is here today actually as well and can present more detail on those reports if you have questions on what those reports contain and how they may be used in consideration of the high need areas. The next item is on the next page, page 4, at the bottom, number 66, unofficial withdrawal. This is in response to questions that we've had over the last few years from various institutions about how to handle students who withdraw from a class by simply not attending. So as opposed to a student who drops officially by notifying the institution prior to the drop add deadline, we have students who occasionally will just simply stop coming to class, and so this presents a uniform way for all the institutions to handle those situations. On page 5, under section 02, you'll see the dual enrollment grant amounts, the determination there. This would be for students who are determined to be in a high need course in their junior year, and that course or program is no longer considered high need in their senior year. This would hold that student harmless and allow them to continue to receive the same award amount. As we recognize a lot of families come to depend on that award amount, we would hold those students harmless in those situations. We anticipate that would be very few in that scenario, but for those that may be impacted by that, we are holding them harmless. The next item over on page 12 is really where we get in more to the rule items that impact the GIVE Act awards under dual enrollment. At the top of that page, items 5, 6, and 7, you'll see that the first is that the TSAC Board of Directors will annually determine the list of high-need courses and programs that will be part of that higher award amount in the subsequent academic year. And that will be based, again, on the recommendation from TSAC and THEC as we go through those reports, as previously mentioned. The next item is that TSAC will disseminate that list of reports to all the high schools and post-secondary institutions across the state upon your adoption of that list for that subsequent academic year. And then that last item, number 7, that is highlighted is an effort to clarify exactly, or a little bit better, what a high-need course is not. And here, probably the best example is a student who is in a mechatronics program that leads to an associate's degree. That program itself would require English, history, and some of these other general education courses. We are saying here that a high-need course or program would not include those general education classes. So we would specifically identify those high-need technical courses and programs for the higher award amount as opposed to the general education classes that might be part of a broader program that would be considered high need.
Pete, this is Heidi Lemming. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Specifically on this section, I guess my question is this taking the place of our dual enrollment that we've been administering where everyone gets their first 2 courses covered? Because it's not specifically mentioning this high need programs specifically to the GIVE grant, and it's under the larger dual enrollment section, and I'm just curious if it's meant to replace the dual enrollment program.
No, that's a good question. These would be exclusive of the broader dual enrollment program that you're referring to. So these are just for courses that TSAC's board would identify as high need technical programs and courses. In that situation, they would be receiving a full award amount each year, as opposed to those courses that are not in that list, where the award amounts are identified for those at a community college of 500 for your first, 500 for your second, 200 for your third, and 0 for your fourth, and so on. These are exclusive of those award amounts.
So if I can follow up on that. So what you're saying is that if the program of study requires gen ed, the gen ed still will not be covered at the higher amount. Only the specific technical courses within that program of
Correct.
study will be covered.
Correct. Yeah. Now,
Okay.
they still would be able or be eligible for a dual enrollment award.
Right, but not
but
the higher amount.
Not the higher amount as
Correct.
identified under the GIVE Act last
Okay.
year.
A couple more questions, really probably more toward Emily. One, I wanted to know, so when do you plan on having the board approve these high need courses so that the campuses and the students can plan for it? And then two, will there be regional differences on those courses? So, I mean, what's needed in Dyersburg may not be needed in Chattanooga. So,
Let me answer the first question, and I'll let Dr. House answer the second part, or Director Krause if he wants to add to that. The next board meeting we have, which would presumably be after the General Assembly is adjourned, so March, April timeframe is when we would hold our next board meeting and present to the board those list of high-need technical programs and courses that we would approve for or ask for your approval for the higher award amount.
Pete, I guess from the TBR perspective, we feel the language is a little unclear here about the difference between the GIVE courses and the regular dual enrollment. So I'm not sure if there's a way that we could clarify that language.
Well, let me add to that. We do have language specific to all of the other dual enrollment award amounts for community colleges and TCATs in the appropriations bill. So this distinguishes only those dual enrollment courses that would be identified
By this board.
for this specific award amount. And the bill, the FAST Act bill that Director Krause referred to earlier, some of the language in that bill will more clearly distinguish the award amounts under this. So that may help as well.
Pete, is there harm in a verbal amendment for a sentence that just says at the end of either a news? I'm still on the board legally, correct, Pete?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's always a good point to clarify before you make a motion. I hear Dr. Lemming's concern, because I think where she's coming at it from is a financial aid office sees these rules and tries to immediately interpret them, and oftentimes making sure they have access to either the appropriations bill or the code section is probably not realistic. So what's the likelihood of us being able to do a verbal amendment either as a new subsection 9 or as a trailer to subsection 7 that clarifies? And obviously it's self-evident if you've read the rules as we have, but I'm picturing that financial aid officer that's just trying to get clarity, and they see the sentence that says these rules are for the purposes solely of administering the GIVE Act programs eligible for a higher award, yada yada.
Yeah, we could accommodate that for sure.
Okay, let's do this.
That would be great from the TBR perspective to have that included.
That's what I was about to ask, Heidi. Okay, good.
Okay.
We will do this. Pete, how much more do you have to walk through?
Very little.
Well, then let's go ahead and just do the work now.
Okay.
I will defer to board counsel where the best placement of the sentence would be.
I think it would have to be in, well, maybe not have to, but I think the best place would be in 7 as a sub.
Okay. So I would propose an amendment to subsection 7 as a new third sentence. This subsection will be solely applied to those awards made under the GIVE Act. And feel free to do surgery on that.
Well, what I'm wondering is that you've got 1, 2, under 11 eligibility for dual enrollment grant. You've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 are dealing with the traditional dual enrollment grant program, correct? And then 5, 6, and 7 are really only dealing with the GIVE Act portion of dual enrollment. So what if you made that just slide that on those points as a subsection for the Give Act, unique to the Give Act, the following things apply or something. And I'm not an attorney, but I mean, I'm wondering if you put those in, if you have number 5 about special issues related directly to the Give Act or additional information related to the Give Act, and then you do those as subs
ABC.
ABC
you go.
below that,
That's fine.
then that separates it out completely.
I withdraw my motion.
Yeah. Can you make
That's-
that work?
Absolutely.
Can you make a motion? Because we need that official.
Okay, I'll see if I can do it correctly. So basically, I would move that we create subsection 5 as a kind of a header related to circumstances related to the Give Act, and make the current 5, 6, and 7 as subpoints to that new header.
Right. And then still add a sentence in the current 7, as Director Kraus mentioned, that awards described in this subsection shall apply only to awards from the Give Act.
But you're essentially doing that if you're making that header.
Okay.
If you're making that header as the Give Act
that's fine.
circumstances, and then those are subs. Heidi, would that work?
Yes, I agree with that. That
Okay.
sounds great.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
So we should take a vote.
You should. Proper motion.
So we'll take a roll call vote on the motion to create a new subsection 5, breaking out provisions specific to administration of the Give Act and including as A, B, and C underneath subsection 5, the language current for subsections 5, 6, and 7. Ms. Crawford, will you please take the roll?
Chairman Nick Najad,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Christina Podesta,
Aye.
Claude Presnell,
Aye.
Greg Turner, Dr. Heidi Lemming,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Cyrus Vandenduce, John Smorelli, Joe Myers,
Aye.
Sharon Hayes,
Aye.
and Sabrina Washington. All ayes.
The motion is adopted. I'll defer to you on the distribution of the amendment.
Yeah, I'll do that. And then we'll email that out to the board members as soon as we get that written.
And that just means our final vote would be an as amended.
Yes.
Our vote on the rules as amended.
So the next item is on page 18. This is a clarification, again, similar to what we had talked about earlier with the unofficial withdrawal. This was a concern brought up by a few institutions over the past couple of years regarding the grade scale used for determination of the cumulative GPA, post-secondary GPA. So again, this is just an effort to clarify and to make uniform how schools apply a grading scale for the determination of that GPA. And then the last item you'll see on page 23.
May I ask
Yes.
Martin with UT, just had a question about kind of I understand the uniformity, what impact this might have been having or what the concern was associated with it.
Well, we are aware of at least one institution that applied a grading scale that we believed was not in conformity with the rules, a standard A through F grading scale. In consultation with the Attorney General's office, they agreed that the rules that we had made that clear that it should be a standard A through F grading scale. So these rules, as presented here today, have been vetted through the Attorney General's office and then presented just for clarification, additional clarification as to the intent of our rules. Again, on page 23, there's a lot of, depending on your version here, either red or blue or both ink. So it looks like a significant change here. There really is nothing substantive being changed, but we did have some questions on the process of a student's appeal. Typically, a student, when they lose an award, a TELS-based award, will appeal to their institution for relief, meaning they want to get their award back. There are some instances, though, where a student would not appeal directly to the institution. They would appeal directly to TSAC. Typically, you see a student who transfers from out of state to an institution. If they did something in their previous institution, let's say they went to the University of Alabama and dropped a semester from full-time to part-time, which is prohibited by rule, and then they transfer to an eligible institution in state, they would no longer be eligible for HOPE. If they tried appealing to the institution here in Tennessee, the institution would say, well, that violation of the rules took place in another institution, so you have to apply to TSAC. So this makes clear what the process is for applying to the institution or to TSAC, and then also exactly what materials are needed in that appeal. We wanted to make sure that the students knew exactly, even though that the materials were all laid out for them in a form that they would fill out, we wanted to put that in rule to make it clear what would be required for their appeals. I will say, too, that we presented these rules back in November to the Attorney General's office for an informal review, just to get their buy-in before we present it to the board. They had a few minor formatting changes, but the only, I would say, substantive change they recommended is that in the bottom of paragraph 1 on page 23, where it says that the appeal should be held no later, or that the hearing by the institution held no later than 14 calendar days after the appeal is properly filed. They asked that we add language in there to allow for, say, a winter break, Christmas break, spring break, when the institution's financial aid office may be closed for a significant amount of time. So we would recommend changing that language to 10 business days, excluding, and then at the end of the sentence, excluding holidays and school closures, which would include the typical spring break, winter break, or inclement weather types of situations. So that, according to the Attorney General's office, would satisfy their request. So again, with that change to the rule, that covers, I think, all of the substantive changes, Mr. Chairman, of what we have recommended here for the board's approval.
Do we need to vote on that amendment?
If you all are agreeable to that change, then yes, I think we should.
Okay, great. Well, I will make a motion to approve the Second Amendment to the TLS rules regarding timelines for appeals. We could take the roll.
Chairman Nick Najad,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Christina Podesta,
Aye.
Claude Presnell,
Aye.
Greg Turner, Commissioner Schwinn,
Aye.
Dr. Lemming,
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin,
Aye.
Cyrus Vandenduce,
Aye.
John Smarelli, Joe Myers,
Aye.
Sharon Hayes,
Aye.
Sabrina Washington. All ayes.
The ayes have it. So then the next vote will be to adopt the rules in their entirety. Is that correct?
Yes.
So do I have a motion and a second for the motion to adopt the rules as amended in their entirety?
So moved.
Take the roll.
Second.
Second.
Chairman Nick Najad,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Christina Podesta,
Aye.
Claude Presnell,
Aye.
Greg Turner, Commissioner Schwinn,
Aye.
Dr. Lemming,
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin,
Aye.
Cyrus Vandenduce, John Smarelli, Joe Myers,
Aye.
Sharon Hayes.
Aye.
Sabrina Washington.
The ayes have it, and the new rules are adopted.
Mr. Chairman, could, I still had that question about regional differences. Did that get answered?
Oh,
Yeah, I was just interested in that.
we'll invite Dr. House to share just a little more background on what she anticipates, and that might be
Yeah.
responsive to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Director Krause, members. Claude, to your question, I think there's still some conversation to be had in that regard, but what I would like to emphasize, and I do have the physical reports here in front of me, this is the ECD report and this is the TSAC report, that while there is variation region by region across the state, if the board were to decide on 5 areas, 10 areas, 15 areas, however many high need areas are going to be eligible for the increased GIVE funding, generally speaking, that number of high need fields is pretty similar region by region. It may just be that in one region, HVAC technicians would be number 7, and in another region it would be number 10 or whatever. So a lot of that just has to do with the number of fields with which the body is comfortable approving. But as far as I know, and Director Krause and Chairman Nick Najad, please forgive me and correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, I don't believe the intent is to diversify by region.
I would, yeah, and I would add, I think given the number, there is an administrative challenge potentially to drawing lines regionally, and so I think my preference would be, but we'll defer to the will of the board at the next meeting, is to find a number that captures all the region's needs as much as possible,
And that sounds like the most reasonable approach, to it. I didn't know. And so I didn't know, like, for instance, if we were limited by, you can only identify 5, high need. And so, but yeah, if we've got some latitude on that, I think that would be the best approach.
And I will commend the THEC research team as well as the ECD research team CERT for the great work they did on these reports. All of that information is outlined quite clearly via table, figure, map, whatever else. So it's while of course there is uniqueness and diversity region by region, there really is much more commonality than maybe one would think at first blush.
Could you send those to
Yes,
us
sir.
as a first glance so we can look at them?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
there are no other questions. Thank you, Dr. House. We'll be moving on to the last item on the agenda. I think we have some information around conflict of interest.
Correct. Yes.
Would you like to?
Sure, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just every year, of course, we ask for this conflict of interest disclosure statement to be filled out and signed. For those in attendance here, if you could do that before you leave, we would appreciate it. And those participating by phone, we will send these out to you and ask for your signature and to return them to us. This is for audit purposes. We're asked to disclose these each year to the auditors that come. So we appreciate your help with this.
You have a due date on that?
We don't, but the sooner the better. Yeah.
I think if everyone's able to take a couple of minutes to fill this out today, that would be excellent, and we'll leave
Yes,
to
we
the
can.
folks down. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second.
Stand adjournment.
All right. Thank you.